You can refresh your.
Is today's show
I do
one
believe there will.
two? Okay.
There are bridges, bridges in the sky. They are shining in the sun. They are stone and steel and wood and wire. They can change two things to one. They are languages and letters. They are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than anyone. They are languages and letters. They are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than anyone. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, and they are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, and let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us right another wrong. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them
Building bridges. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for letting us use your Bridges song on our Bridges programming. I think when you made that song, we were listening to you, and then when we thought of the music, we thought of the name Bridges. The name of Bridges programming is to bridge the gap between everybody. We want to bring people together to help humanity, and that's what Bridges programming is about. We are Republican or Democrat or Jewish or Christian or atheist or whatever you are. We want to bridge the gap, and that's the point of Bridges programming. So that's where we are. So I just want
the gap in understanding is what you're saying.
Yeah,
you're trying to create understanding between
which
they didn't realize was there, maybe.
Right.
A lot of the dynamic of the modern dynamic is that people fear each other, they distrust each other. If they don't know someone personally, the immediate the instinct is to decide that maybe there's something wrong with that person. It's amazing that that which even the things that we come to know and have real experience with, and the people that we come to know and have real experiences with, sometimes we don't trust our own instincts about that. And this is a problem, because when the climate of a country or the general trends in a country are toward fear and distrust, that's what you're going to get,
right,
for the most part. And people will believe first the worst that they've been told could be, and then they're going to back off from that, possibly,
and they like to
or possibly not.
And they like to believe a lot of things that are that they want to believe in things that aren't necessarily true,
and that may divide them from someone or some group or some idea that they've never thought about, let's say, or they've never met this person, or they've never had an experience with this particular cultural group or whatever. The first thing to do seems to be to distrust it and to malign. And this is a sad testament for the way that
we're thinking.
things are happening right now. It seems to be very prevalent, and it's very ironic too, because we have the best ways of communicating ever, and we're not trying to reach out and communicate and find our commonality when we can. We can reach across the whole globe to any individual or any groups, or people that are connected to the internet, and there are lots of people now connected to the internet, and more each year have access. And it's just amazing to me that the better the communication gets, the more paranoid people seem to be getting, and the less they communicate. They actually turn off their phones, they turn off their message taking things, because they're afraid someone's gonna steal their information, or that's a reality. The banks, as soon as you open an account in any bank, they have access to everything that you think is a vital part of your identity, and they have legal access to all of those things, your social security number and everything, and you can't stop that. That is something that our government has decided that banks have a right to.
Yeah, because they're
individuals don't have a right.
We have no more rights. We have no more rights because we are
what's the word you're trying to think of?
We are controlled by the economic system, so that takes over everything.
Paramount, right.
The reason I look so puzzled is I think I somehow lost my music. My energy song disappeared for some reason. I got to find that again.
It seems like we're not centered in our image here.
Well, let me see if I can do that. That's over here. If you go over this way here.
But it used to be that the cameras were...
On the other side of the thing. Okay, now we are here with...
that looks better.
We are here with Susan Comat, and I'm Jeff Beller, and Dennis Carius is on the phone, on the other end of the phone. Hello, Dennis. And you are here and this is Sunday on the Front Stoop. So this is where we are here, Sunday on the Front Stoop. And I'm going to try to get to my music somewhere here.
Well, you don't need it right now.
Well, but while you're talking, I'm going to try to locate that. Dennis, if you refresh your screen now, you should be able to see us live.
Okay, this is...
I see you and Susan. It's great to see you both.
And eventually, once we get the computers working, we'll try to
So on this subject that we were just talking about, about how people can communicate better than ever, but they don't bother. They communicate less accurately, or they don't bother at all.
Right.
It's quite a phenomenon.
I don't know.
What do you think about that, Dennis?
Why do you think everybody is so afraid of
each other? And willing to...
No, 99% of us are not afraid of each other. No.
Do you think so?
We're just told, right, it's the upper 1%. When I watch, the Fox News or, mainstream media, that's when I'm being brainwashed to think that I have to think of you or those people over there, those Muslims, as terrorists.
Well, do you think that kind of propaganda doesn't work on a lot of the population, a lot of the what you call 99%?
Well, I want to ask Dennis a question. If we talked about putting your credit card out there recently, and I know that I don't like to have my credit information on Google, but I do keep a credit card, and if you read your credit card statements, the credit card, the banks can give your information out to anybody who they deem important.
Or part of their affiliates, what they call affiliates.
So we have sort of have a little right to be a little paranoid, but I don't think it's, I think the problem is we're all paranoid because of the economic system. And you're saying the economic system is basically the 1%ers. Is that what you're saying, Dennis?
Well, unfortunately, I don't mean all of them, but maybe 1/10 of 1% who want to be even more rich. I think that is a problem.
You can come this way a little more so we sent it. I for some reason or other, I have the camera. I must
In
have
the wrong
kicked the
spot.
camera.
Right.
So I'll try to fix that later on while
Because
Susan.
I don't think my microphone is going to
That's good, right?
cooperate that much.
You're doing good, I
Anyway,
can see. So anyway,
but you don't think, Dennis, when you say, you know, you deflect essentially the blame for what's going on a population that, you know, is kind of amorphous, but 1%, isn't that another way of dividing us against each other and fear mongering and things like that? Don't you think
aren't
that's
you
very...
feeding into that?
Well, we were told for years that we're divided. Some are far left, some are far right. We have the Republicans and the Democrats. But I agree with these groups that say it's no longer the left versus the right, you know, 60% versus 40, that it's, you know, 1/10 of 1%, the richest, the most powerful, and then 99.9% of us who really want to go in a great direction. But, you know, if we're being brainwashed by mainstream media, yes.
You don't think that's another artificial division to keep people confused about what they really should be trying to work on to make life better for everyone on this planet?
Okay, so what is the problem then?
The problem is what we're concentrating on. We're concentrating on trying to find a scapegoat for why things are going badly.
Oh, no, hold it. No, let me, this came up. We had a conversation a while back, and you were blaming a cat and yourself for what happened, right?
The cat?
Yeah, we were talking about losing something, and you blamed either the cat or you or both of you. And I said, it doesn't matter who's to blame. We have to fix the problem, right?
Right.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that whether it's 1% or 1/10 of 1%, they are part of the problem is not them so much. It's the economic system.
Oh, don't we all operate the same in the economic system? Just we have different amounts
levels,
of money
right,
to throw around. I mean, we still have to behave pretty much the same as everyone else. We behave the same as someone who has $1 billion. We have to pay taxes. We have to go to work. We have to use a vehicle to get to where we're going. You have to go to the grocery store. You have to use fossil fuel. You know, our references are all the same. You know, what's available to us in terms of news is pretty much the same. The entertainment is pretty much the same. And I'm talking about a country, this country, the United States. And I'm talking about what we experience here, but I think it's it's becoming pretty general worldwide, except for the countries that still have significant populations that are agrarian and living on small farms, which is a huge part of the world population. People don't realize that it's still a huge part of the world population. In fact, it might be a majority. Still.
A matter of fact,
I just don't see how behavior is any different because we're all influenced by our economics.
I would say if you want to start using percentages, I would say to you that 1/3 of the world population, not even, maybe even, I'm not sure, but probably 20% of us, you and I are in that 20% bracket, Dennis, that we have a lot more than the other 80%. So we would be to blame as much as the 1% or the 0.1%. We are just as greedy. We are just as, we are still killing people with our work and our life. We are doing that. And we look into, if we can step back and admit it, then we have to ask ourselves what
the lifestyle.
Our lifestyle.
It's not a deliberate
killing. It's not intentional. We don't want to do that.
It's because there's so much of the natural resources is being absorbed by a very small part of the population of the world. But one of the symptoms of, this behavior that's so similar amongst us all, because, it's patterned, there's a template. The economic system is a template that influences everyone's behavior. And one of those symptoms is dividing people against each other.
It forces us as pegs into the right holes.
Well,
it forces us. It guides us.
Right,
it guides us unwillingly into a place that we hurt people. Whether we're 1% or 20%, I don't know what that percentage is. I think that's a mainstream media tactic of getting this into a cul-de-sac.
And confusion and lack of commonality, and a perception of the lack of commonality between everyone, and confusion about who the other people are, or what they're doing, or
those people
harmful. These are things that the economic system, as we practice it now, reinforces over and over and over again, because destabilizing people's ability to communicate with each other and learn from each other is a huge way of controlling. It is the main way of controlling large populations. Either that, or you just drug them all, which has also happened historically.
You have two different things here. You have the people who say those people, meaning poorer people than they are,
or
and they're lazy
people,
or they say those 1%ers who are controlling us and they're greedy.
Right.
So you have people who are saying, well, those people are lazy people and they won't work.
This is
and
the
then
same
you have
routine, right.
Those 1%ers who are doing everything wrong because they're greedy. But we're in the middle and we're blaming everybody else, and we just divide ourselves into three parts. The poor people who theoretically don't do anything, which is a lie, and then the people in the let's say the 20 or 30%, if that's right, and I'm not saying it is a guesstimate on my part. I have no way of proving it. And then the 1%ers, the 0.1%ers, who people say are the greedy ones controlling the world. Now that all may be or may not be true. I don't know, but I do know there's some. What the problem is the economic system itself. Before we go ahead, I want to get some housekeeping done. This is called Sunday on the Front Stoop. Everybody's welcome to join us on Hangouts on Air. You can join in if you choose, and sorry, I don't know how to tell you to do that, but most people out there who can use a computer are smarter than I am with this kind of stuff. It's brought to you by the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure, which we feel as though may be an answer. We're not saying it is the answer. It may be a measurement that we need in the economic system.
It's a direction.
Direction, we have to have a measurement so all humanity has their basic needs met for about an hour of labor. So you live 80 years of age, more or less. You use 1 million calories of food from the sun, 1 million calories of water from the sun, and or energy units, and a certain amount of energy units for your basic needs for shelter. So you get your education, food, and shelter because you work 1 hour of your life a day anywhere in the world, and we feel that'll stop wars, and it'll also stop people from killing one another. And
well, it won't stop all the horrible things that people do, but it definitely will lessen the
if we can accept the measurement, though, after a few generations, this will cease because everybody's working together rather than in competition. Just like it started out with this world.
We're not being educated to think that there's scarcity, that there's not enough, that people have to compete for scarce resources. Do you want me to read the summary that I put together last night?
Now, Dennis, we talked about
because we'll get to the subject that we advertised that we're going to.
Yeah, we're talking about Buckminster Fuller, and the reason why we're talking about Buckminster Fuller is because he many years ago said this is a spaceship we're on, and if we damage our spaceship, we will definitely not be here, and that means we don't want to do that, and that means the sun is our supply ship, and the moon is our
energy supply.
The moon is our gravity holder, and we don't want to poison the atmosphere or the water or the soil, and we don't want to kill one another, and we don't want to drop an atomic bomb because of the economic system. So Buckminster Fuller fits right in, and they call him Bucky, and That's what he wanted to be called, was Bucky. So we're going to
Because he
be,
wanted to everyone to realize
He's
that
an
an average
average
person,
man.
what an average person can do.
and the Pope, and this is
He felt he
Sunday,
was an average person.
and this is Sunday, and the Pope is saying the same thing. We need to change the way we are doing business so we have a sane economic system. But we're saying we went one step further, and we're saying we now have to not just deal with the environment. We need to understand, which the Pope is saying, that we need to fix the environment because the economic system is tearing it down. Okay, you are on, my dear. And Dennis, you have anything you want to say before Susan goes on?
Oh, no, both of you are doing great work. I really like doing this show with both of you because I really want to reform things if they ever get dysfunctional.
Well, we do definitely have a dysfunctional
Economic
system which is controlling our government.
which is distorting everything at this point. This is the fifth part to our discussing Buckminster Fuller's ideas, and we're gradually going through his book that he published at the end of his life, Critical Path. And so I wrote a summary about what we'd like to discuss today, kind of reviewing what we already talked about. We were last examining the need for the concept of zero to be expressed in economics in the form of human basic needs, a human renewable energy measure. These human needs being met worldwide for every person before free market wants begin to be satisfied. Bucky knew the power of that something that expressed nothing, zero, and explained how and why it was kept from most of the human population for 1,700 years until about 1500 AD, when the Asiatic concept of zero, created around 800 AD by al-Khwarzmi, an Arab, finally migrated to Europe by way of Italy and Germany. This changed everything. Now there was a starting point to relate all calculation to, all experience to. This meant it was possible to find location, distance, time, commonality between persons, between all living creatures. This is what we need in our economics. Time to take economics out of the Middle Ages.
Okay, now, did you understand the zero concept? Did he make sense to you? Because it took me a while to get that, Dennis, but it made sense to me. Did you understand what he's meant by the zero, the nothing concept?
No, what was most interesting to me when you read, Susan, did you say Italy and Germany?
Yes.
Yeah, but more that was the travel.
What was your question?
But did you understand? Did you understand?
Go ahead.
Did you understand the zero concept?
No.
Okay, what he's saying, if you don't know where zero is or where you are on a scale, you cannot measure anything.
You can't relate things.
You can't relate to things. If I tell you, Dennis, come visit me we're going to be up in the Mohawk today. You say, oh, I think I know where the Mohawk is. But I'm not, but I picked you up, take you out of your location, and you have no idea where you are. Even if you knew where the Mohawk may be somewhere on a scale or a map, you couldn't get to me because you don't know where you are. You have no idea where you are. And if you don't know where you are and you travel,
you might hit and miss.
Let's say 5 miles.
Right.
You don't even know what miles are because you don't have a 0 point. What this guy did very late in time was figure out a 0 point, a point of start, a point of reference. And when he did that, this is an Arabic guy, and of course,
al-Khwarzmi.
I can't say.
Well, I'm trying to get
al-Khwarzmi.
Right.
And he said
Arabic.
And he was Arabic, and he came up with the concept of zero. You are here. So when you go to the map, you can pinpoint where you are, and then you can look at the from where you are to where to meet us, let's say, in the Mohawk. And you can say, okay, that's 8 miles from my house, because now you can measure where you are now at 0 miles, and you can measure the distance to where you're going to go. But if you don't know where you are with 0, the point of start, when you go to 0 on a scale, a Celsius scale, we know 0, we've made that freezing. And then we go from that point to 100 on a Celsius scale, and that's boiling. Now we can change the scales around to more numbers, but we always know that the point of 0 is where is freezing, and the point of 100 is boiling. But if you change your scales, let's call it Fahrenheit, we can just say that 32 is freezing and 212 is boiling. We just changed the graduation of the scale, but we always know where point is, where we start from. And we're starting from a physical measurement, and physically it means freezing. Whatever it's 32 or 0, the start point for the temperature gauge is when water freezes. The start point from wherever we are is from where we are, and that's why we have GPS to locate us. And the other reason, and that's why we need the HRM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure.
Economics.
It's for the economic system.
The 0 started to make mathematics make sense, but we need something equivalent to a 0 in economics to make economics make sense.
And that's where we measured the HRM. And it's a group of numbers.
Something that represents
energy
0.
Numbers that can't be manipulated. And that's once we give that start point, we will not have a dysfunctional economic system, which in turn will give us a functional government worldwide and a fair way of exchange worldwide. So everybody has their basic needs met, and we can stop wars and stop killing everybody. And then when you go to buy a car, the most efficient car you can get would be the cheapest car you could get.
And the most technologically advanced car. Technologically advanced. That's what we're being held back. All our technology is being held back because the rationale of our present economic system is how much scarcity can you make people believe in, how high a price can you make them pay, and all of the entrenched companies that are making vehicles right now, they are stuck in the old economic system and can't change over to the new technology and to the new, more efficient uses of fossil fuel that vehicles can take advantage of. And then eventually, mass transportation should be the best option. But we're still rebuilding old bridges the same way that they were built originally, 50 and 100 years ago. And they're not upgrading that technology.
They have better tools. Better tools, but we know for a fact that instead of building a bridge with the tools we have now, we could go ahead, like the Tappan Zee Bridge, for instance, they want to rebuild that. Well, we could, the tunnels equipment that we human beings came up with for this great digging system, that's much better than the Tappan Zee Bridge, but the people aren't getting paid off enough. The governor and the different political groups are getting paid big money to put technology into place we could possibly put into place.
Well, the same technology that they're putting in the same
so
stuff
they can
that
make
they had
money.
before, right?
So they can make money, but if they were truly economical, they would just get the best technology they can. Nobody would have to be competing for the work. We would just do the job. And
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Can Susan just read that same, just one sentence, the one sentence again where it mentioned Germany and Italy before we take our break?
We're not going to take a break. We are bringing these shows right down to a 1 hour program. So we're going to go right through for 1 hour. and then we'll sign out. So we
Actually, what I can read to you is Buckminster Fuller's description on the same subject, and it may, because he says it in a different way than I did, trying to get to the same point. Maybe this would.
What you just read, when you mentioned those two nations, who wrote that?
Bucky.
No, I wrote that. That's my summary for today.
Okay, when you mentioned those two.
But it's taken from information that I read in the Critical Path book by Buckminster Fuller.
Well,
by Bucky.
Mention why I'm asking the question.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
For me, it's very interesting. All these, just think, as far back as humans have been on this planet, how many world wars have we had? There were 2 world wars. World War I and World War II. Over in Europe, it was Germany and Italy that both wanted to reform things that were getting dysfunctional. And they said, look, it's 99% of us that are being controlled by the upper 1%. And then that's when we had to send our troops over the ocean. I mean, I'm very surprised that we sent our troops over the ocean because, England, Great Britain wanted us to go over there. And that's a country that we were really not at that level with for all those years after.
I can't go into the rationale for Second World War right now.
Dennis, all these things you're saying is truthful. And I'm going to ask you a simple question. So what? What are you going to do about it?
It's history now.
Okay.
Write that down. Make a note of that.
And I don't know
what are you going to do about it?
What was going on behind the scenes at that time.
And you mentioned Great Britain. Before it was Great Britain, it was the United Kingdom. And that means that all the kings came together so they can fight your other kingdoms so they can control the economic system. That's all it's about. Now that we know that, the next step is, and we know that we have a small group of people controlling the economic system now. Now that we know that, what are you going to do about it? You can't reform government because government is controlled by the economic system. So you can't change it in the present economic system. So the next question is, how do we change the economic system, or what is wrong with the economic system? And what the Pope is saying, and Bucky is saying, and we are saying, that there is no measurement based on physical reality in the economic system. And we need something based on physical reality.
The necessary
things to stay alive.
There's a lot of physical reality in economics, but it's the physical reality of profit making and what objects make the most profit.
But it has no relationship to nature.
Survival.
It has no relationship to humanity. That's the problems. Does that answer your question?
Well, actually, I mean, to me, it goes beyond that because profit making is really important in something called capitalism. But I'm not talking about capitalism. Before communism, we had something called socialism over in Europe. And all I'm saying is that we sent our troops over there because Great Britain asked us to, because Italy and Germany and other countries felt that 99% of those countries were being controlled by the upper 1%.
But the problem with that is it wasn't real socialism.
We're agreeing with that. My question to you is, let's get beyond that, Dennis, and let's say you're right. Now, what are you going to do about this?
Reform things. If they ever.
How are you going to reform things?
Well, that's a good question. I really think they tried to do that 100 years ago over in Europe.
And why couldn't they? And why couldn't they do it?
Well, because the upper 1% said we're not going to let you do that.
They can't stop you. The reason why they're not allowing you to do this or not letting you to do this is you have no understanding about where we are.
And may I go ahead and read what Mr. Fuller has to say about, we at least have one reference to him in this program, since that's what we said that we were going to
That's the
do.
trouble with it, 1 hour program.
No, it
Okay, go
just
ahead.
means that you gotta stay on subject,
Go ahead.
is what it means. He describes how what you guys are conversing about started happening around 200 BC. And here's what he says about it. Quote, the geocentric, meaning the earth is the center of everything, concept of the celestial system was, after 200 BC, becoming more and more formally adopted by the world's flat-minded power structure authorities, despite contradictory complexities, which they already knew at that time. And that's me speaking. They already knew, these authorities knew that what they were saying about the earth being the center of everything couldn't possibly be the case. But here's what Buckminster Fuller goes on to say, quote, it seems almost equally clear that between 200 BC and 200 AD, a deliberately planned policy was adopted by the supreme political and religious power structure of that period, which undertook the conditioning of the human reflexes to misconceive and missee, or mostly not see at all, the macro-microcosmic systems in which we live. Their success drew the curtain on science for 1,700 years until 1500 AD. That curtain would never again have been raised had it not been for the discovery of that something called nothing, the zero. Because it was nothing, the information monopolizing physical property coveting power structure had overlooked it. Only, and he goes on to say here, and I know this is a long quote taken and a lot of information, but then he goes on to say, only the learned from others' knowledge of the unlimited multiplying and dividing and thereby ratioing and their relative experiences evaluating capability provided exclusively by the zero could make possible individual humans' knowledge of how to escape from the prison of ignorance successfully established by the church-state hierarchy. And then he goes on to say, this is where he refers to when the zero came to Europe. It was the Asiatic 800 AD publishing of The Function of the Zero by al-Khwarzmi, the Arab, that ultimately saved the day when in about 1200 AD, knowledge of it reached northern Italy and southern Germany by way of Carthage in North Africa. And that was probably because of people trading back and forth. And finally, this concept of zero got to Europe.
In other words, you couldn't figure out how to even move around because it was so vague, because no
Well, that was most of the population, but it was known. It had been known because navigators use this kind of information so they can triangulate where they are.
The general population.
The general population.
99% of the population.
Deliberately kept
the 99, the large portion of the population.
He's saying it was deliberate.
It was deliberate. And it still is.
The ignorance was deliberate. It was promoted deliberately that most of the population should not understand how to relate their personal experiences, their life experiences to everything else that was happening around them and in the larger world. And now this kind of information is at our fingertips, and we do understand the concept of zero. We do understand measuring. We do understand learning from each other. And still our economic system is based on people not understanding
and
this.
No, it's not
so
based
what
on
you've
zero.
got is absolutely nothing under your feet.
It's
You have nothing under your feet according to our economic system.
It's not based
We're not
on anything,
standing on anything.
right? We don't know where you are.
In modern in the way that this is not modern economics. This is medieval economics, and that's what we're trying. This is a difficult thing to express, but it's a very simple concept. And when people really get their minds around this, I think it will be
It'll be an earth-shattering
it'll be a
change,
game changer.
and hopefully earth-shattering.
And it's better for everyone. I mean, it's not going to favor any group or what we perceive as groups or, no matter what. When everyone is comfortable in terms of survival needs, you're going to change the whole interaction of humanity. People aren't lying in order to get what they need to live.
So,
they're not.
So I think I can answer Dennis's question that you've always said to me. How, if the 1%ers don't allow us to change, then how are we going to do that? That's the question you always bring out. Is that right?
Yes, regarding being brainwashed by mainstream media. Yes.
Okay, so if we can say to the population that we know that there's something wrong, and we can now measure that all humanity, because that we all know that we have a number that we agree upon.
We have commonality.
We have commonality. We all know we live about 80 years of age. It's not debatable. It's part of science. You're right. Some people live to 120. Some people will die at 40. But the average person, within the theme of science, the good enough for science is going to be 80 years of age. We all know that. Now, good enough for science says that the sun gives us in 1 million units of food and 1 million units of shelter. Of water. And then there's a certain amount of units of energy units, be it kilowatt hours or energy units, joules or whatever. We know what minimal shelter is required in energy units. So we take the years we're alive and we take the needs, not the wants, but the needs of the population, and we say that's our start point. You can't change that point. It's based on nature. And once we understand it's based on nature, the 1%ers can't lie to us anymore and say that's not a good measure. You can't use that. And that's what they're saying to us. All of our mainly educated friends, our professors, not most of our professors, but the ones who can't get their mind around it because they've been brainwashed by mainstream media. You can't judge people like that. People are all different. People are not all different. Human beings are pretty much the same. We all have the same lifespan. We all have pretty much. We all have used the same amount of food and water, and we all need shelter. And none of us should be in slavery. And with the technology that humanity has developed through fossil fuel and now through renewable energy and the technology, we should be able just to have to work anywhere in the world one day for basic needs met. That is a measurement that we call the Human Renewable Energy Measure. And if we can put that measurement to something,
it's the equivalent of a zero in
it's
the
the
economics.
equivalent of the zero in the economic world.
That's why we're bringing up the idea of the zero.
It's just like freezing, Dennis. We know you can't, we know that the temperature, water freezes at 0 and boils at 100 in centigrade. We know that. It can't be changed. We can't change the fact that it appears as though the sun comes up and goes down every day. You can't change that fact. No, it doesn't actually go up and down. It circulates, and that's what Bucky says. It's the axis of the planet that spins that apparently makes it happen. But and you are lying to people when we say the sun rises and sets every day. But we agree upon that measurement. So we're going to leave that alone temporarily, even though Bucky hates that idea. So I'm saying to you that if we have the measurement that we accept, just like the days, we number the days, and we number the years and the seconds and the minutes and the temperature and the distance, we have a point of measurement, and that's what's missing in the economic system. And once that point of measurement becomes a standard throughout language, the 1% can't control you anymore. They can't, they'll always be, if you want to call them greedy and want more, that may be true.
But that might even change.
But yes, but we don't know that.
We don't know.
As Bucky says, there's a certain thing called synergy. You never know how synergy is going to work out. You don't know what the results are going to be because there's so many different variables. But there is an exact number for the economic system to stop this insanity, this dysfunctional economic system that's creating a dysfunctional government for the majority of the population. However, it's very functional for the small percentage, if you call them the 0.1% or the 1%, I don't know what that number means, but it may, you may be right, but it's very functional for the way they're working it. Now, I'm suggesting that we need a measure, so that's where I'm going with that. I don't know how much clearer I can make that.
No, I agree, and really, that's why they call it capitalism. But the man came over here in 1830 from Europe, and he said, you have a nice constitution and a beautiful Bill of Rights, but this is only going to last until the rich people can do this. But that was Alexis de Tocqueville who came over and said this. He wrote a book called Democracy in America, or Democracy for America, I think it is. And that's just what's happening right now. Capitalism,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what are you going to do about it?
Well, I'm not saying communism, but when they talked about socialism, they were really trying
Dennis, first of all, let's break these isms down. What is communism?
Well, communism is, that's what Russia started, before.
What is it? What is it?
Well, it was basically to give basic needs to everybody in the country.
No, communism is basically says everything is divided equally. That's right. And and everything is divided equally. And I'm going to tell you a little story about communism real quickly. A friend of mine was a communist, and I said, if you had 2 houses, you'd give me one. He said, certainly. I said, if you had 2 cars, you'd give me one. He said, certainly. I said, if you had 2 horses, you'd give me one. He said, oh, no, I would never do that. I said, why not? He said, because I have 2 horses. That means communism doesn't really work, because psychologically in mankind, it doesn't work. There's no such thing as communism. Now let's look at socialism. What do you think socialism is?
Much better than communism.
Well, I don't know. What is it?
Well, it's almost like giving everybody the basic needs, like food, shelter, education, for, just a minimum amount of work per day or per week.
But then where does capitalism come in?
Ooh, wow. Capitalism. There's no limit to how much if you're a millionaire, you could become a billionaire. Or if you're a billionaire.
But if you're a socialist, if you have a socialistic government, everyone's going to have their basic needs met. But you're still going to have people who can be millionaires and billionaires, can't you? In the socialism system. Socialistic system.
If you had a good system, yes.
So you'd have billionaires and millionaires within a social system, right?
Social.
Well, if you had the correct system, you could do that, yes.
And I'm saying to you, so it really doesn't matter whether you call it capitalism, socialism, communism. What you're looking for is a humanitarian system that people can be individuals to make as much as they want, but no human being should ever suffer from lack of food, water, and shelter and education for a minimal amount of life worked.
Well, when you say as much as they want, if the very, very rich people want to become even more rich and say,
but
get that oil from under the ground.
But how do you know how much is too much? Give me a measurement.
That which kills.
That's the position we're in now.
That's the position we're in now. I
That's
want
why
to make,
people
I can make right
take
now, if I
borders
invest my
into
money, if I invest my money in the stock market like David
That's why
Soros,
you have billionaires.
and I invest my
Billionaires.
money, I can make, and I invest it properly, I can make $1 billion or $1 trillion, right?
And the more you
And-
make, the more you
And
can make.
how much should I pay in taxes? Give me a number that you gotta justify.
And
the
meanwhile,
number.
I'm gonna change the laws so I don't have to pay
Right.
taxes.
So how are you going to justify
And
that?
I'll get people to go into government that will agree with my changes. And
Right, you're gonna get
I'm gonna
like,
be hiring them.
right, you're gonna get.
Literally, you're hiring
You get
them.
Donald Trump in there and he'll make sure the laws change so you make even more money. But how do you know how much you should pay? How much should I pay in taxes if I'm making $1 billion a day? Tell me my magic number. How do you justify that?
It's a very good question, Jeff, because that changed between 1980 and 1990 and 2000. That changed. And, you know, some people were happy and other people were unhappy. So it's a very good question.
No, the reason why it changed is because you had no basis to base it on. You weren't able to base it on anything because you didn't have a 0 point. So you can't tell me how much I should pay. But if you had a 0 point, a start point that I have to put back X amount of my income because of the amount of 0, I start from this. I'm making $1 billion, and because we figured out the 0 point, you could actually come up with a fair and honest system that is functional to make sure all humanity has their basic needs met. So you can actually have a socialistic, capitalistic economy that everyone has their basic needs met, but people can be individual. But before you can do that, you need a 0 point in the economic structure. I really wish I could make this.
Okay, let me let Buckminster Fuller say something here on what you guys are again going back and forth on here. And Buckminster Fuller referred to our power structures, you know, what we call elites and things like that. He called that the emperor pope. It's like a combination of religion and politics, he felt, and that's how he saw this. But this was, of course, too, he was referring to the original power structure in that term. But he's saying here, quote, the emperor pope did not want any of his subjects attempting to set in order the facts of their own experience. And that's where we're at still. We're being kept from setting in order or making sense out of the very facts of our own existence. And we're being set against each other. We're being divided by our customs, by our race, by our sex, by our financial status, by our education, and we're being told not to trust, and we're being made paranoid by the news media and the fictional programming that, you know, TV series and movies and all this stuff is confusing people deliberately from and not allowing us to come together on our commonality, which is all of our basic survival needs are all the same. You know, our lifespans are generally within a certain range. We all get energy from the sun. That's our original energy provider, and we need a certain amount of calories and water per year. That is very calculatable, and with computers, and Buckminster Fuller asserted this over and over, that if we feed the computers the right statistics, it will come back with an efficient analysis of what is needed everywhere on Earth for people to live a dignified existence, pre-free market, you know, before they're commanded to it's demanded of them to work within the economics to make money in general. Before that, the basic needs need to be met through economics, and that can be determined what is needed everywhere by computers that have been fed, unbiased information. Now that's going to be a tricky one, as Dennis says.
Well, the thing is, the reason why by computers unbiased information, we can easily do that. That's not a problem. Because once we decide upon the measure that all humanity has to have their basic needs met, education, food, and shelter for about an hour of labor.
Then you'll have something under your feet.
Now we got the base. Right. Now you take all the countries, let's say there's 100, let's call it 200 countries, and you arbitrarily pick from by hand, not by political just even though it wouldn't matter. Then you take the best political people or the best programmers for computers, and they come together to build a computer program. That computer program then determines all the needs around the world, the human needs. How much their currency would work for the basic needs met. And then once that happens, we go to, instead of gross domestic GDP, gross domestic product, or gross GNP, gross national product. That's how we judge the economic system now, but we would judge it on how well we take care of the population for basic needs met. And you allow the free market to take over, and then the economics. After that, you mean? Yes, and then the political system would be judged on that, and the computer programmers would be able to figure out the money based on the energy numbers in each country that's required. So that could be easily adjusted, and if it doesn't work, they can readjust it. So you're going to have all basic needs met around the world by computer programmers who would actually be based on the energy units for the amount of food, shelter, and lifespan of a human being. And that's based on physics. I don't know if I can say that clearer, but that's the way I'm going on with that. Did that make sense to you, Dennis, at all?
Oh, yes. I think that's very, very interesting, Jeff.
Okay, well, I just want to see if we can figure out a better way to say it.
We keep doing that. That's what all this programming is about. We keep refining how to say.
Now, if you look at your screen,
what we're thinking about.
This program is called Bridges Programming, and today is Sunday on the Front Stoop. Wednesday we have Wednesday World. Call in, and then we have Friday night we do a program just based on Bridges Programming itself, and then we have Saturdays doing some more programmers. And then we're going to be putting on some more programming too as well. It's all going to be done on YouTube with on Bridges Programming's website. So please don't hesitate to get involved with us. I'd love you to do that. We're going to try to bring it down to 5 one-hour shows a week if we can. We're going to have spontaneous shows, impromptu shows, if something comes up that we'd like to talk about. And
we're going to keep the time down to an hour.
Keep the time to an hour.
At the most, it's going to be an hour. It could be 15 minutes for the shorter.
For the shorter versions, and if we have some interesting guests on, we'll be able to keep it longer. So we don't have it set up so well. So I want to thank all of you for listening. This is World Call. This was Sunday on the Front Stoop, and don't hesitate to listen. Dennis, thank you.
And Jeff, I'm looking right now on the computer. I can see you on the internet. So we're going to change it from Sunday in the Front Stoop to Sunday in the toll booth, right?
Sunday? No, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay. I'm half joking. You know that,
right? Right. See you Wednesday.
Energy.
Thank you.
Down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.